and start our board meeting. Would you please take roll?
Mr. Hendricks? Here. Mrs. McDaniel? Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Stoffer? Mr. Wyledge?
Here.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the March 21st, 2022 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. And at this time, we have a 2022-2023 budget.
Yes, it was published on March 8th.
Okay, the timing works well for us because we have to have it filed by April 15.
Correct.
Filed by 15, so we have to go through this meeting and then come back and do a vote at our next
Okay.
meeting, which will set us up. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Andrea.
All right, so this is the budget hearing for fiscal year '23. Lewis Central's general operating fund budget is substantially influenced in terms of total budget authorization and funding components by Iowa statutes. The maximum authorized budget is for the general fund expenditures only, and it is also known as the total spending authority, and it is calculated as follows. The combined district costs for the 2023 fiscal year is a little over 28 million. Our estimated unspent balance as of the end of FY23 is projected to be 765,000. The instructional support levy will be 1.67 million. We will have an increase in preschool foundation aid. For this year, it will be 244,000. We are projecting our miscellaneous income to be 8.2 million for a total authority of slightly over 39 million. The total spending authority limits the dollars the district can spend legally. Any unused TSA carries over as unspent balance. If we were to overspend, it does violate statute, and TSA and unspent balances are not cash, just the authority to spend cash. Here is the history of the supplemental state aid. The current year is 2.5%, and that equals an increase of $181 per pupil. It is actually the highest that we have had in the past 8 years. The FY15 would have been the highest at 4%. The combined district cost is formula driven and calculated within the aid and levy worksheet, and is what was given as the $28 million in the total spending authority for the district. It is based on our enrollment for the prior year, so enrollment from October 1st of 2021 is the enrollment that we will use for the budget for FY23. Miscellaneous income, which is projected at $8.2 million, comes from a variety of sources. It is anything and everything besides state aid and property taxes. So your federal funds of title funds, ESSER funds, our state funds, transportation equity, for example, and local funds. Our major one is open enrollment tuition. And here's some other examples as well. The board-directed programs and levies include the at-risk dropout prevention, the 33-cent portion of the PEPL levy, and the management levy. It also would include the cash reserve levy, but once again, we are limited and cannot levy any cash reserve due to the 20% limit. The voter-directed programs are our instructional support program, the 50-cent portion of the PEPAL levy, the SAVE, and debt levies, but at this current time, we do not actually have any debt levies. The operating fund revenues by source, our property tax source is $11,960,000. Our state aid is $16,150,000 for a total of $28,110,000. Our instructional support levy is $1,490,000. Our estimated miscellaneous income is listed there again at $8.2 million. Our at-risk dropout prevention is $645,000 for a total budgeted revenue of $38,446,000. This is the operating funds revenue by source. That's very similar to the current year. There were no major changes to change any of these percentages for this year. The FY23 property tax levy calculations are listed. Our levy, we had an increase in the dollars that we will be receiving for the general fund, but a decrease in the levy rate due to our valuation increasing. The management, we are levying the same dollar amount, but there's a decrease in the levy rate. And the PEPAL levy rates stay the same, but we also had an increase. We will see an increase in the dollar revenues received. Our total tax levy is going to decrease, and it'll be $10.23 per $1,000 valuation. And the makeup of the total tax levy is very similar, once again, to this year's makeup as well, with 74% of that being from state funded portion of it with the uniform tax levy. Here is our history of our levy rates. So they continue to decrease. Last year we did have the significant decrease, but as you'll see on the next page with our district valuations, we had a very significant increase last year. This year our valuation increased by 87 million. So a very good increase, but not quite as drastic as last year's increase. These are some surrounding districts' tax rates. This is this current year and last year's rate. This does not take into consideration anything that we just talked about for our levy rate, but that's just a comparison of this year and last year's. And as you can see with comparison, we are one of the lowest. We are the lowest in that group for comparison. This is the authorized budget, so it is not the line item budget. That work with the setting the expenditure limits for the different line items will take place later. This just establishes our statutory spending maximums so that we can spend funds for next year. Are there any questions?
I do have a question on the PEPAL, the 50 cent, what could that go up to? Or is it the board one? I mean, we've kept it at 50 cent for the voter and 33 for board for
Correct. So the
a lot of years.
Yes, yes. So, the board can approve the 33 cent, and that is the max that,
Okay.
the board can approve, and it can go up to $1.34 on the voted.
That was my question. Okay,
JARS expires the end of next year.
okay.
Our
Yes.
voter approved.
So we will need to take our PEPAL to, an election, either, this coming September or March of 2023.
We'll discuss that more, but maybe wise to go out sooner than
Right,
later.
right, okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right, then this will close. Oh, I should have asked, is there anyone online that has chit-chatted and asked anything? No, okay. So with that, we will close the public hearing for the 2022-2023 budget. Next on our agenda, commendation and good news.
Let Dave carry a few things, and then I'll follow that up with a few additional things that came my way.
At your table, you should find a copy of the winter highlights from high school. And I just have one thing that I'd like to highlight, and that is Amara Orth. We've talked about her a couple of different times. Last time we talked that she had been picked as one of the 300 national finalists for the a very prestigious science award. Well, the good news is she was picked as number 9 in the nation and has received a $50,000 scholarship then. And it's a very exciting time. It's truly amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I can't even hardly read the things when they, if you click that link that I'll send to you, the top 10 projects are truly amazing projects.
One of our local news media stations contacted me to do a piece of. Did that ever air, Josh? Do you know if that went through or not? I was very quick to pass it off because I was afraid I would have to speak to it, and so Josh willingly took it up to make. Yeah, to make sure there was some. We thought it made much more sense to get parent permission and have the student be interviewed than us. Let it highlight her, but it's very impressive stuff, no doubt. Be interesting to see what roads she travels over the next number of years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Is that it, Dave? On your end? I want to just mention a few other things that came to my attention that I think are very noteworthy and just fun to mention these kinds of things. Our middle school counselor and former baseball coach, Lee Toole, was one of 4 National High School Baseball Coaches Association 2022 Hall of Fame inductees. So congrats to Coach Toole. And we're fortunate that he's still with us in his counseling assignment.
Yes.
So we get to see him a lot, and it was fun to congratulate him on that accomplishment. Big deal to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then additionally, a few really cool and noteworthy things about our longtime teacher, Tom McLaughlin. 2 things. First, Tom was selected as a runner-up for the ISEA 2022 Excellence in Education Award, which is in its 22nd year. And the Excellence in Education Award allows the Iowa State Education Association to showcase talented and devoted education professionals like Tom. So he was a runner-up in that, which is a high honor. But then, in addition, he is this year the recipient of the highest honor or award given by the ISEA. It's called the Charles F. Martin Lifetime Achievement / Union Leadership Award, and it's given just to one person each year, and this year's delegate assembly happens to be the 50th anniversary for the award. So Tom, proud to call him our own, and I know most people know Tom because of his years in the district and his dedication. But two very noteworthy things on Tom, and we send him our best and our congratulatory remarks to him, and thanks for his years and for Coach Toole's years of coaching.
Absolutely. That is good news. Anyone else? Commendation and good news? Okay. The next portion of our agenda is comments and suggestions. This is the first time during our meeting that anyone in our audience, or if anyone wants to type anything online, can address the board. And I don't hear anything from the audience and nothing online, so we'll go on. There'll be another time during our agenda that someone listening online, or if someone comes in, they can address the board at that time. On to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We do have
Updated.
several changes to the personnel agenda.
Okay, so we have an updated personnel sheet.
The changes are marked with asterisks.
There are quite a few. Happy to get them in, though.
Me too. Some stellar hires on that sheet right there.
All right. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel? Yes. Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Reports, 7.01, COVID-related updates.
Well, this may be the shortest COVID update report yet in history, and again, if things continue to go this way, I'll once again probably pull this off the regular reports until, and hopefully there never will be another need to report too much. But we are happy to say that since coming back from spring break, we have maintained 0% with 0 cases to our knowledge in our staff or our students, and we seem to be carrying that into this week as well. With no real threats, there are some concerns out there. You may have heard in the news there's what they call a variant of the variant that has been prevalent in other countries. From what I read, it does not seem to be a real threat to the general population, but they're thinking it could be a concern with elderly folks. But no sign of that. If you look at the numbers in our country, they still just keep diving. In fact, the CDC's website, Iowa's website, is no longer. We can't look on Iowa's website to track anything. The CDC's website has changed entirely. They're not even showing percentages anymore. They're showing low. I can't remember what they're saying for the middle and high in numbers, and practically the entire country is. And they're new shades of colors too, so it mixed it up. So we are feeling right now about as normal as we have in 2 years. It's a good feeling, and we'll stay vigilant on watching the news and what to watch for. But all good news report in the way of COVID right now for Lewis Central.
That is good news. Okay, we'll go on to our discussion items. 8.01, Risk Pool Natural Gas Program.
So you probably recall that last year we entered into the Iowa Local Government Risk Pool Education Energy Group Program with the intent, obviously, to be locked in and to save money overall instead of going month to month. And so this will be our second year. We want to continue that. And you've had some information presented to you in the board book. I'll let Andrea speak to the specifics.
Yeah, so this will be our second year in it. As we're kind of going through this year, we are definitely seeing that we did have a benefit from it this year. We'll know fully once we finish out the fiscal year, but with the increase of the natural gas supplies, we have definitely picked a good time to get in on this. So this year, the $125,000 that is listed there does also include our new operations building as well in that amount. And like before, this is the 28E and the participation agreements for it. And per the auditor of the state of Iowa, we can pay this premium out of our management fund, so it saves our general fund as well.
Okay, any questions? Okay. We'll go on. 8.02, governor incentive additions.
So I know most are familiar with this. It's been in the news a lot, covered a lot in the political news and just news in general. I think the intent is a good deed, but it was rolled out in a rather confusing manner, just to be very honest about it. The intent on the governor's part, from what we are told through our Department of Education interpreting this, is that the intent was to incentivize all teachers in Iowa, public and private teachers, through ESSER dollars that the state still holds, incentive for all teachers to stay in their contract this year. So not really an incentive to return next year, just incentive to not walk away from your contract this year, which we weren't really experiencing any issues with that, but I have no argument about incentivizing our teachers because I think they are grossly underpaid and not specific to LC everywhere. The problem is it was specified to be designated for full-time certified classroom teachers only. And we could talk about that all night long. There are employee groups that get paid wages that are very, very challenging for anyone's lifestyle, and they're not included in there. But yet, if you're a para-educator, there are many days we just simply cannot do. Every day we really cannot do without our para-educators. We can't run our school system without our bus drivers, so on and so forth. Our nurses, my goodness, what in the world would we do through COVID or any cold flu season or just the typical everyday triage without our nurses. But this was specified, and I don't mean to leave any employee group out. I literally feel that every education employee is probably deserving of this incentive, but it's not something we control. The part that I think I would probably speak for all superintendents and my colleagues when I say this, that even though it was defined as those who are considered full-time and have certification of a classroom teacher to hold their jobs, it left out some of those key people on the governor's list. 3 in particular were our librarians, who the library is their classroom, and they have sets of students just like the music teacher does, come through their library all day long. So it left out librarians, it left out our counselors, who also spend time in the classroom and meet with kids a lot, and our instructional coaches, vital to the success of our teachers with our students. So we really feel that it's a disservice, to be honest, to not include those folks since it is referred to full-time and certified teachers. Now, to be very clear in the near future, we have been working on our own, as so many districts are. In fact, in Southwest Iowa, all districts are doing some version with their local ESSER dollars that came to them, doing their own versions of incentives, mostly for incentives to return, because the teacher shortage is of such concern. So, and all staff shortage. We've been working on that, and that'll be something that we'll present at a future meeting. But in the meantime, we really feel that this definition of the governors just got, there was a separation between what seems to be intended and these folks that really are full-time and also certified teachers. So we are recommending that we use some of our ESSER dollars, and we can do this, we can afford to do this, to include what would be a total of 21 additional full-time certified folks, to include them and to make that whole, if you will. Now, I want to say, and I'm really saying this on the fly, I don't know if Andrea or Dave or Josh or anyone has heard, or Tim, maybe even if you have, I had an email just sent to me suggesting that something new came out. I wasn't notified that the governor changed and added that anybody teaching in any form with students should be included. I haven't seen anything like that. Clearly, if something like that does come, well, then we would divert back to using those funds. But I don't think that's the case, because I haven't heard anything, and usually superintendents would be one of the first to hear if there's been somewhat of a change. But we'll give it a day. But assuming that that is not accurate, the recommendation tonight is that we utilize ESSER dollars to include our librarians, instructional coaches, and counselors, which is an additional 21 full-time certified folks, to also receive the incentive of $1,000 for completing their contract for this year.
Is there any questions? So does that include paras?
No.
No.
You know, it's
Full-time.
right, full-time and no requirement of teacher certification, paraeducator. So, but we, trust me when I say that paras deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't think there's one employee group that hasn't. I mean, all employee groups are evidencing shortages. Some not as much in our area as others, but I think for the same reasons. You get into rural Iowa and it's really bad. But you know, we're trying. I think we're forced to stick to the governor's definition, but we just feel that there's a disconnect when they specify full-time and certification, and the employees that we're suggesting to include have those things.
Eric, what's the breakdown of those three groups to the 21? Do you know?
Andrea can probably help me.
Yep, 2 librarians, 8 counselors, so that, 11 coaches.
Okay, thank you.
But if something does come up that the state has expanded that,
Yes.
then you will use those funds and not our ESSER dollars.
If something is coming up where there's change, they're going to have to let us know really quick, because one of the requirements of this incentive is we have to, functionally, it has to be in place. Originally, it was supposed to be with your March payroll. Of course, they told us that, I think, a total of 3 business days prior to when our payroll had to be in. So it was impossible to get that done. And that was the same situation. We would have had to run a special you know, additional payroll to get that done. But they came back and they've given us until the 5th of April, which that fits for our April payroll. So we have to get, all teachers have to sign a document that says certain things, that basically recommits their, well, it re-ups their commitment, if you will, to finish the year, finish their contract. And once they have the sign, then they're eligible. We have them have the form that's signed, then they're eligible, and that'll be in their payroll. So if the DE and or the governor has changed anything in that, they would have an obligation to let us know immediately. And I just don't think it's accurate, because I feel if that were out for the general public to hear, I would have received something, and I have not. But I just wanted to mention that, just in case we find out that there's any truth to it. We'll revert back to utilizing the money coming from the governor through the DE.
Just some curiosity, so what they're signing is just a re-upping their commitment to stay through the end of this year?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's, to be quite honest, somewhat symbolic.
okay.
And again, I think it was, you know, I don't know of anybody having issues real. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. I mean, I think there's examples of that every year, but the bigger issue is worrying that people are leaving the profession, not that they're not finishing their contract year. But again, I won't argue with it though, because I think our employees deserve it.
So are there plans though for people that aren't getting that might feel slighted by just being left out of the mix?
Well,
Is
again,
there
we're
funding
working
behind
on
it?
our own.
Okay.
There's nothing at the state level that I'm aware of, nothing coming from the governor.
Sure, but for us as Lewis Central, we're
we-
looking to take care of them in a way.
To the best of our ability.
Okay.
It's probably not as attractive, but,
Sure.
but we're working through the details and letting some other things iron out first. And again, it'll be more of an incentive, for staying with us and for returning for another contract.
Okay,
But our intent is for that to be for all employee groups.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to 8.03. We have a late filed open enrollment request. We have
Two.
two of those. And so per Iowa Code 21.51A, closed session is appropriate to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. And with that, can I get a motion to go into closed session? Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Okay, we are out of closed session. And our next item on the agenda is comments and suggestions from the audience or people listening online. If anyone would like to type in the chat.
There was just one question earlier, but it was already clarified about who receives the thing from the governor, but you had clarified it after the question.
Okay.
Okay,
We're good.
all right. Then we will go on to our action items. 10.01 Risk Pool Natural Gas. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Lewis Central's continued participation in the Iowa Local Government Risk Pool Education and Energy Program with a total premium of $125,807.15 for fiscal year 23 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd.
Yes. 10.02 Governor Incentive Additions.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the utilization of the ESSER funds to include librarians, instructional coaches, and counselors in the governor's full-time certified teacher retention incentive.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. And 10.03, we have open enrollment requests, and I will ask for a motion for student A.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks?
I'd like to make a motion to deny student A's enrollment request as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Hendricks,
Yes. Sorry.
your, Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. And now a motion for student B.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks?
I'd like to make a motion to deny student B's open enrollment request as presented in closed session.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel.
Yes. Items of interest, future board meetings is our next regular board meeting will be April 4th. We do have the super board meeting,
Super Board meeting is next Monday night, correct?
the 28th.
Monday night, the 28th in Atlantic.
Yes.
And I think we have Doreen and Jen,
Okay,
correct, going to that?
Yes.
Yes.
okay,
And then we also have, on the 30th, the celebration
yes.
at the Hoff Center for the Chamber's Unbelievable Workplaces, and I believe that's just Doreen attending. If anybody else is interested, I can still add tickets to that this week. But I had told Alicia at the Chamber that I would get back with her tomorrow on that, so.
Okay, so if any other board member, anyone would like to go, they need to let you know.
Yes.
And March 29th will be our negotiations public meeting.
4 o'clock.
Okay,
Thank you for remembering that. And that's, just a reminder, that is Jen, Bob, and Brian. I think everyone has, I sent an email also to the teachers' representation. I've proposed a 4 o'clock start, but we'll wait to confirm that when we see what the full group can do. But I definitely heard no rejections back, so we'll assume that will probably be okay, but that will be our intent for 4 o'clock that evening. And we'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We got a second, all right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? You can.